All right, guys, so you just joined a Dynasty League and you're excited to start your foray into the Dynasty world. You're looking around the app, you're looking around the new league, the new settings, getting acquainted with it, and you see your starters, you see your 20 to 30 bench spots that you're very excited to stash all your sleepers on. You see a couple IR spots that you're familiar with, but then there's some extra additional bench spots down below that you have no idea what the heck they are there for. And there's the word taxi floating around nearby, but you're not in New York, nor do you see any yellow cars nearby. Well, today we're going to go through what exactly a taxi roster is and the best tips and tricks to help fully utilize it to enhance your Dynasty roster. So as always, like the video, subscribe down below, leave any comments or questions in the comments section about taxi rosters, and I'll see you on the other side of that intro. Welcome back into Twin Takes Fantasy Football. Today we are continuing our how-to series by discussing what a taxi roster is and how to utilize it for your Dynasty squad. In a word, a taxi roster is a place to stash younger players, rookies, or second-year players that you can let them have time to develop the breakout before they make a fantasy impact on your roster. So obviously I mentioned rookies and second year players. So the first thing that goes forward in understanding what a taxi roster is understanding in your league what type of players can be stashed on the taxi. Like I said, this is a place where, you're waiting for a rookie or a second year player that just hasn't had that opportunity to break out yet, and you're placing your bets on them, but you don't want them to be taking up bench spots, so you can hold them here. They can't be put in your starting lineup, but you can wait for them to break out. So how long are you allowed to wait? And that's going to be basically determined by your commissioner, by your league settings. Is it only rookies? Is it rookies and second year players? Can you have up to 30-year players on your taxi squad? First, understanding what types of players are allowed to be on your taxi squad is going to go a long way in helping you efficiently manage the players on that extra additional spots. Secondly, this squad, it's very finicky in how they use them. Prior to a specific date, normally it's going to be the first week of the season, but it can be actually as early as week 1 of the preseason. You just have to check with your commissioner and your league settings to see when that cutoff is. You can move players that qualify based on their age or their experience in and out of that taxi roster. However, once you pass that threshold, the taxi is locked. And by locked, I mean you cannot add any more taxi players in. You can take them out, but you can't replace them. So let's say this year potentially, and I'm dating myself, this is 2023, you go through your draft in the 4th round, you pick up Dwayne McBride, who is a 7th round rookie pick, or 7th round pick for the Minnesota Vikings, and you take the gamble on him and you throw in your taxi. Halfway through the season, they get rid of Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison gets injured, and guess what? It's Dwayne McBride's time to shine. You take him out of your taxi roster and you put him onto your bench. So naturally, you have to ship someone off. You have to release someone from your bench in order to make a spot for him. However, you can't put another younger player back into your taxi. You can only take players out of your taxi. So it is crucial to understand that these players hopefully are guys that aren't going to be breaking out this season. If you think they are going to be breaking out this season, probably better to make an actual roster spot on the bench for them. These is for guys, maybe you're playing the tight end waiting game for those 2 to 3 years. You're playing the quarterback waiting game with maybe a Hendon Hooker where you can throw him on a taxi squad. You don't anticipate him being fantasy relevant this year, but a place where you don't have to worry about bequeathing him to the void of free agency for someone else to pick up when he finally breaks out in 2 or 3 years' time. So you normally only have a few of these spots. I've seen up to 5. I've seen as few as 3, but you really want to maximize these spots. As I mentioned previously, this is a place where you can stash extra players, but you can't, once that season starts, you can't put players back in. So make sure you're using all spots effectively. So if you have just any modicum of a semblance that a player is going to be fantasy relevant for this season, make sure you have an active spot on the bench. For the taxi, you should really be looking at players that you don't think will have any fantasy relevance this year or even next year, but are waiting for that breakout maybe 2-3 years down the line. But again, don't want to bequeath them to the vast void of free agency. So again, the guys that have a higher chance of breaking out, the late round running backs, the wide receivers, maybe try to make a roster spot for them. The taxi squad, I know a lot of people like to use them for rookie tight ends. A lot of people like to use them for late round quarterback stashes. So be sure when you're using them, be mindful of the type of players you're putting into them. Obviously, I would lean away from running backs because they have the ability to make an immediate impact in fantasy, and I would go towards maybe some positions that are going to take a little bit longer to break out during fantasy. But most importantly, just understand what the taxi roster is and utilize it. It's 3 to 5 extra spots that you can have to stash players. The more players that you have on your team, the more value you have, and the more value you accrue is the better you can be able to manage your teams. You have extra value to throw into trades. You have extra players that could potentially break out later on in future seasons. So whatever you do, however you utilize your roster, however you want to manage your team, whether you're win now or you're tanking, make sure just you are using all active spots and accruing the maximum amount of value you possibly can on your roster. And what I mean by this maximum possible value is that you should not be entering any league season with empty roster spots. Definitely not any empty bench spots, but also if your taxi is empty, go ahead and take that shot on a UDFA running back. Take that shot on a 6th round wide receiver. The taxi squad is literally invented for you to take that 5% dart throw on a player like this that you can hold for a year or 2 years and hopefully break out and be fantasy relevant. So hopefully, despite how short this video is, it's giving you some semblance of an idea what a taxi roster is and how to best utilize it and enhance your dynasty roster. If you have any further questions, put them down in the comments below and I'll be happy to answer them. But until next time, take care.